So this is called the Back Nine Podcast and has nothing to do with golf. However, today, after we are done, we are headed to the course to tee it up. We will be starting, however, on the front nine, but this is the back nine.
This is the Back Nine with Dennis Williams and Josh Mora.
Welcome to the Back Nine. Josh, I am hoping to get at least a couple shots today, a couple strokes from
good
you
luck with that.
On the course today when
good
we
luck
tee
with
it up
that.
on the front nine.
Yeah, no, you're giving me shots
one or
as
two
always.
aside, which I don't know
No.
what your number is these days.
No,
So.
higher than yours.
Okay, all right. You win or lose on the first tee. You got to negotiate.
That's your MO, and I'm negotiating back against you.
Do I get to have Tito's today or no?
That's up to you. I'm not judging you about any of that.
My handicap's very different. One way or the other. People know that. So
yeah, we'll decide that when we make the turn. A guy that we played golf with a lot is our guest today, and I've always described him as the kind of person that if you took him to a wedding where he didn't know anybody, he would leave that wedding with 4 golf dates, a new cardiologist, and back in the day, the phone number of absolutely every single girl in the place. Now, he's not in that position anymore because he's got a great wife and a young kid, but he is our very good friend, Pete Hassen. And Pete, by the way, is the chief marketing officer of the NHL Alumni Association. And so you're on your second career, and it's so great to have you with us and joining us here on the Back Nine. And I also didn't mention that you have 3 Stanley Cup rings, and I think that's worth pointing out too.
Incredible.
That's more hardware than anybody has brought to this show before. But you recently made the transition into this next career over the past couple of years, and that seems like a pretty good place to start. You had accomplished so much working for the Chicago Blackhawks and winning those Stanley Cup rings on the business side of things, and then you decided to make a change. So maybe you could take us through what was your feeling of, I've done enough here, or I've done all that I can here, or I've done all that I'm going to do here. How do I get myself to the next challenge in my life professionally?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me, guys. Congratulations on the podcast. I think this is a wonderful idea, and 2 of my favorite people on the planet putting together you 2 on a podcast. I don't know which hole you guys were on, or the 19th hole or whatever.
We'll get there.
Yeah. But great idea. Great idea. And as I was saying to Dennis at one point, transition has become a very focal point in my life right now, working with the alumni, because a lot of those guys are going through that. They've built up something for so long, since they were 8, 9, 10 years old. They've been told, you're going to make it. They make it. Everything that they know in their DNA is about hockey, about being goal focused, about leadership, whatever it might be, team orientation. And then it all stops one point, and you're all of a sudden that's all supposed to go away, and you're just supposed to become somebody else. Transition and pivoting has been very important for me now. But to get into your question, Josh, which is a good one, yeah, you have success in 3 cups, which the rings are great, but where do you wear them? I don't go to the grocery store with them on. Yeah, it's just odd, but they're wonderful keepsake of some very great memories. I think 18 years in one position doesn't happen very often anymore these days. 22 years in the league on the marketing side, on the team side of things. And it just got to the point, guys, where it felt like there was something else I needed to accomplish. There was something else out there. You used to take meetings with guys coming in with new technology and all these different things. And I'd think, man, it'd be cool to be on that side of the table for once. Mm-hmm. And I think also, and you alluded to it, starting a family at a little older in life, my priorities completely shifted. Going back 10 years ago, it was me and my girlfriend and fiance at the time, and that was it. So we could both pour into our careers all the hours in a day, right? And that completely changes when you have a kid. And your priorities change, your life changes, as everybody knows who's had a child, and the ability to be able to free yourself up to have a little bit more time to enjoy the little things in life, where you just couldn't when you're working 8, 9 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, many times on the team side of things. So I just took the opportunity, guys, where there was a transition with the team I was at, new leadership coming in, where it was just like, you know what, you guys deserve a new fresh start, and I deserve a new fresh start. And you had to be a little selfish about it, because it just could have sat there and spun my wheels for many years, but I'm just not wired that way. So I wanted a new fresh start and a new challenge.
That's terrific. I do think that Josh jumped into that very quickly. I wanted to really talk a little more about that wedding crashers theme I was picturing with you going to the wedding. I was having a good time going to the weddings, and I was getting like a wedding crashers moment there.
Yeah.
But no, we'll move on.
Josh is right. There was, a few times where I looked. I was a bachelor in Chicago for many years. It was a good time. It was a good time. I used to go in with my business card on my forehead when the Hawks started getting good. Yes, but those days are long, long gone.
Let's talk about that. That's a good segue because you did. I find it extraordinary. We've had another guest, the VP for the Chargers was on with us, who's a good friend of mine. And he had a very similar background to you, like a lot of time in the NFL, amazing life, mostly in Boston for a while, and then had kids at our age. And I just wonder how difficult that transition is. I'm not going to speak for Josh, I'll speak for me. I was thrown into it so young, I didn't even know what I was doing. I just went with it, right? You don't have time to compare it to anything else. You don't have time to, do I miss that? Because I was so young. I'm just curious as to how you flip the switch and go from all of that free time or all that work time or all of that and become a dad at a later age.
It's a great question. And I don't know if there's a simple answer to it. I think it's in everybody's backgrounds and how they were raised. But I will say this. I know that if I started this 10 or 15 years earlier, I don't know. And this is just me. I don't know if I would have been as good or attentive as a father as I am now, because I was so focused on my career. And I also think because I had a little later start, I went to graduate school, things took off on my path on the team side a little bit later. I didn't get into the meat of my career till my mid-30s. And I think I felt like I had a lot more to prove there. And that's where all my focus went. So I think if you had thrown that in the mix back then, I don't know how I would have been able to handle all that. I still think, obviously, your child takes precedent for everybody, right? Like you have your kids, and that's number one, no matter what. Also balancing the outside influences. And by that, who's your boss? How much time do they give you? What is the protocol wherever you are of how much free time and leeway you have? My boss for many years didn't really understand the idea of putting family first. He thought it was career and team and everything that was first. So it would have been really hard for me to balance that. And then fast forward, Dennis, to now, again, I just think that I had to start to settle into who I was, matured so much more, and being able to understand some of those traits and being able to ready to pass on and be a father, right? Being able to sit with your child in any way and be able to teach and listen and be attentive and be present. I was just ready. And it was just, I think, again, I think I would have been able to handle it, but I don't know if I would have been as good. There's no signs. There was nothing that came. There was nothing like, hey, now you're ready. But I got married a little later too. I was 43, had a child at 49, and we had to take her career and her life, my wife, Kate, in her career and her life into our thought process here. And so that was a factor, but I don't think there was any starstruck moment or lightning hitting me or anything, but I have to say that I feel like I wouldn't have been as ready. And I don't know if anybody really is for all this, but yeah, but it just became something more of a maturity factor for me.
Pete, as you're describing it, I can't help but notice the parallels between your parenting now a 4-year-old and what you have to do to give that child advice and counsel and guidance to what you're doing professionally right now. The guys that are leaving the NHL are not 4, but in some ways their life is so different from anything that most people experience because so much is scheduled and structured. And as you point out, it's been everything they've built their life to. So what are the kinds of questions as they're making that transition? Where do you see their struggles? Where do you see their concerns? And how are you, having gone through something similar yourself a couple of times, how are you able to inform them and give them that kind of advice?
It's a real astute comparison, Josh. And I don't even know if I even thought about that, but you're dead on. It becomes a, who am I? Who am I? And as your child grows, you start to impart your wisdom, whatever wisdom that might be, and the way you and your wife want to raise your child and how you want to put your imprint on their life. I think guys that are transitioning out of especially a pro athlete career where there's so much attention and so much fame and so much money, that when that rug is pulled out from under them, they start to look in the mirror and go, who am I now? What am I? And where's the help to allow me to start to figure that stuff out? And unlike my kid who's got pre-K and teachers and all these in a community of people and family and uncles and aunts and everybody that was, I think it was famously quoted by Hillary Clinton, a village. Was it Hillary Clinton said it takes a village?
Yeah.
So it does. And you have all these people that are helping your kid, but the athletes don't have that. And it's amazing to me. It blows my mind sometimes. I think some leagues are better than others. NFL, they all have their own way of doing it and transitioning programs, but it's up to the athlete to take advantage of it. And really, sometimes you got to lead the horse to water and you got to make them drink. And then it becomes, what are they good at? What are their other skills? I'm not just a left winger. I'm not just a left tackle. I am more than that. And for hockey guys, especially as Josh and Dennis, well, these guys didn't even sniff college. So they didn't get an idea about what are the interests. Maybe I like accounting. Maybe I'm a more fit for social work. And there's only so many broadcast jobs, as you guys know. There's only so many scouting and coaching jobs, and the amount of guys that get that versus the amount of players who are retiring and looking for transition is totally uneven. That becomes really important, where you have people that are what we're looking at the Alumni Association for the NHL is building out this transition program that really starts to answer questions for guys, gives them building blocks, gives them tools to not only start to figure out who they are, but then put an action plan together about what they're going to do. Because a lot of these guys made enough money not to work. A lot of these guys, they have enough. If they did the smart investments, they're fine. But I think where it becomes an issue is free time and not having a mission, not having a goal, not having any sort of team-oriented focus to their life. And they miss all that. And so then they get on a slippery slope with drinking or other vices and other things that happen. And that's when they can get into trouble.
So how do you help them? Not just a lot of that was, what's my next career going to be? But when you and I were talking last week, it was also, there's so many like personal struggles. Like you touched on it. The family becomes different because it's all they've known, and the relationships become different. So how are you able, or do you as an organization help them with that? And are you starting to dig into that portion as well? Because you're only as strong as you are in your relationships to be able to handle a job, right? Like you have to have that base, that family base has to be strong. Otherwise your new career is going to fall anyway.
Yeah, we see this window, Dennis, where it's like the first 3 years they out of retirement and transitioning away from being a pro athlete, there's a lot of focus on the family. And I'm able to pick up the kids from school now, and we go on trips, and there's a honey-do list, and everybody's wife, the athletes are no different. They put their pants on just like us. They have wives and responsibilities around the house. Some can pay for more than others, but there's still responsibilities within a household. Everybody's family unit is fairly similar, right? So there's different structures to it, but they have responsibilities, and that becomes a lot of pressure because they were the center of the attention. These are guys that have had their days planned out, both in season and out, for pretty much their whole lives, as far back as they can remember. What they're going to eat, when they get on a plane, when they go to sleep, when all this stuff is structured, and all of a sudden that's all gone. So the structure becomes just a family. So the tension after all the pickups, the freshness of picking up your kids, the freshness of going to all the hockey games or the baseball games or taking those trips, once that wears off, guys start to become anxious and nervous about what's next. They start to look like, I'm 30, I'm 32, I'm 34 years old, and I have 30 years ahead of me. What am I going to do? And so I think then from the family side, there has to be an understanding from the wives, the parents, everybody, that what they've all known this person to be is still going to exist, and that is there as far as their community involvement and their connection back to their teams and the game, and that person's there, but they have to take on a new persona, and the support from the family needs to be there. And I think we're seeing more so from the alumni side, we're seeing the need for an understanding on career development, understanding of financial literacy, because a lot of these guys, again, if they haven't gotten with a real reputable firm, Uncle Joe or Uncle Jack is taking care of their money and they turn around and a lot of it's evaporated. The economy itself can do that to these guys. So financial literacy understanding, career development understanding, structure to their life, a lot of therapy, a lot of guys who can tap into somebody who they can just talk to about their struggles of this transition. So there's a lot of different layers to it, but the Alumni Association is starting to build that stuff out. And again, like I said, the NFL, NBA, MLB, they all have their own systems. So I think it's really important.
Let's take a quick break.
Listeners, Dennis and I have a lot of experience with friends, people that we know who have found success on their back nines.
Yeah, one of them is one you know from grade school, a guy named Michael who was connected to Che Brands. And the founder, Chase Glick, one time weighed 350 pounds at 23 years old, lost a ton of weight, realized during that weight loss journey that he missed out on his social life. And when he got back into the social life in that world, he didn't want to compromise that new healthy lifestyle. So he realized the Better For You market was growing, but did not understand why no one had created Better For You spirits. So he set out on a mission to create a line of Better For You zero sugar, low carb, plant-based spirits. Those Better For You products include zero sugar, low carb, low calorie flavored vodka and ready to drink cocktails, coconut mojito, lemon drop martini, zero caffeine vanilla espresso martini. Visit cheproducts.com for more.
Now back to the show.
And we've all seen from our time around professional sports, relationships that have gone away when the expectation changed because the life is so different. So you're doing great work there. I think it's really important for your constituencies and stakeholders within the league.
I'll just add before you ask the question, there's opportunity within that too, though. So there's all this, but it's opportunity for name, image, likeness is so big now. These guys all still have a name. And how can they build the business around those names? And how can you create content? How can you, there's so much opportunity around that you don't have to turn around and ask a professional player to now become a lawyer. You just have to find the right path for them to be able to feel comfortable with what their skill set is and matching what they can now do to maximize their kind of their name, image, and likeness.
It's fascinating as someone who was around it and fascinating for me as a fan, but I'm going to ask you to pull away from the professional and go back to the personal, which is where we started the conversation and where we can bookend it, which is how do you look at the same questions? We're all 50 something, not 30 something, but there's a lot of runway still ahead of us, right? There's a lot of, to use the metaphor of the show, there are a lot of golf holes still ahead of us. How do you take those same lessons that you're applying to guide the members of the Alumni Association into your personal life? And how do you view that same thing with a young child and a great family and a new job to think about what are the things, you can go into the specifics if you want to, but it's more the general. What are the questions I'm asking myself for this third act of my life?
I think, to use your golf analogy, because I think it's brilliant, if we're on the back nine, I'm going to savor every hole. And I'm looking at every hole as an opportunity to get better, to improve not only my life, but my family's life, stop and enjoy it a little bit more. We're always in a rush to go get to the green and get the low score. But boy, some of these courses are really beautiful, guys. And if we don't stop and look around and take a minute to really enjoy where we are in life, what we have accomplished, but there's much more to do too. So if we're on the back, look, we have many more holes to go. And I look at it as, for me right now, is each of these holes is a little something different. And I want to try to expand kind of my horizons and look at different opportunities. Don't pigeonhole myself into kind of one certain thing, whether that is just marketing for a team and just continue to do that. Some people can do that. I'm not wired that way. And so I'm looking at this back nine rather differently. I'm looking at each hole individually rather than a complete sum, and trying to really take my time to enjoy it. But beyond that too, it's continuing to strive for success, continuing to try to make an impact in whatever way that is, career-wise, community, giving back. Those things are far more important now than they were 20 years ago. Making sure that the friends and family, you're staying connected as much as possible. I lost a lot of that. When you're so focused on your career and you're just driving so hard, you lose. There's a gap that starts to appear. And if you don't control it, the gap becomes real wide and it's tough to get back. And so I'm trying to really focus on all that and knowing that it is the back nine, making sure every hole counts. And I think that lastly is just, I don't really see it ending at the 18th hole like we talked about. I hope we either look at each other and go, you want to go another 9? Or go to the 19th and enjoy ourselves for a little bit longer. But I just don't see an end. I want to keep going and enjoying the moments. And conversations like this are amazing and fill you with kind of inspiration to really look at that kind of more as a whole, what you're looking to do moving forward. But yeah, I don't see it ending. I don't want it to end. Hopefully we'll keep going to the sunsets.
Yeah, let's keep going. And I'll tell you what, Pete, I'm thinking about this as you're saying it and this transition in your life. Man, if you have an impact on one guy's mental health that might have gone in a different direction with the alumni, one guy who you hear the stories all the time where they go down the bad path and struggle mentally and then tragedy happens. And man, it's going to be more than one. And it sounds very cliche, but if you save just one guy, you've done a lot for the world and for a family. And I can't imagine how rewarding that would be. And I want to follow. I really am interested. I'm glad we reconnected because I'm really interested in this journey for you. To me, it's inspiring the impact that you have the ability to have, Pete. And I know you came from the flashy, winning those Stanley Cup rings world, and to transition into this and be able to have this kind of impact is remarkable and has to be.
You're 100% right. I'll leave you guys with this story. There was a guy named Colin Fraser, not really well known, won a cup with the Hawks, moved on with the Kings. He came back for a Blackhawks convention one year, and he stayed over till Monday. He said, I want to come to your office and talk to you. I said, great. Came in, and he's, Pete, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. He goes, I didn't make a lot of money. He wasn't one of these. He made a couple million, should be able to survive, but not really started to get concerned about what he was going to do. And I just stopped and said, think about what makes you happy. What is your passion? It's simple stuff that we've all heard. You've probably told this to a million students, Josh. You've told this to your kids and other people, Dennis. We've all said this. What are you passionate about? What is it when you stop and think about it, really, what burns in your gut? And Fraz was like, look, I love the game. I want to be around the game no matter what. Some guys can step away. I can't. I have to be around the game. And I said, so start to figure out what that is. And I can help you network, whether it's scouting, you're going to have to start somewhere. And that was the bottom line. I said, stop thinking about it and start somewhere and let me help you or ask other people to help you. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And that was the start of something. He is now a full-time scout with the Hawks. He helped scout Connor Bedard. He's loving life. But I saw him on the road one time. He came back and thanked me. And that's all that mattered to me, Dennis, was I could see in his eyes. And he was like, dude, thank you so much. You don't know how much that meant to me. And it was 10, 15 minutes. It didn't mean much to me, but it meant a lot to him. And that's really why we're doing it. And I hope it's more than one. But even if it's one, you're right, Dennis, it's all worth it.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic. Pete, I'm going to be in your town in a week and a half or so. If you guys are free, would love to get together for coffee or whatever it might be. Because these, as you allude to, these moments are really meaningful and impactful and important. So hope we can get together. And we're thrilled that you joined us here on the Back Nine.
Thanks, buddy.
He's the best.
That was great. That was truly. We've had some great guests. They're all great. I'm not going to rate them, but that was fantastic.
Yeah, you can rate them if you want. A couple of takeaways. To me, harken back to what he was saying about enjoying when we were together this summer and we were playing golf with my dad, and we'd go on to play 2 rounds, but we had just hit our tee shots on the very first hole that we were playing, and you stopped me and you squeezed my arm and said, hey, enjoy every minute of this. And the illusion, you didn't say it directly, was because you never know when you're not going to have that. And it totally, not that I was in a contrary frame of mind, but I wasn't exactly that focused on that. And that was so meaningful and impactful for me and really made certainly that weekend. And it was one of my highlights of the year for sure.
But you never know. And I said that to you because you were playing with your dad. And I didn't know my dad is still around, but he hasn't played golf in 6 or 7 years, I think. I think I also told you I wish I had known what the last round was going to be. Right. I didn't realize that I didn't have any more rounds with him. You never know. And that was really where that came from.
And that's the takeaway, one of the takeaways from Pete. And I think
take every hole like it's your last. Like literally play every hole like it's your last hole.
Yeah, and I think there's one other thing that we should also add to that too, which is you never know the impact that you're going to have on somebody else. Pete on Colin Fraser, you on me in that moment. Just being able to share these sessions that we've had here in this first season of the Back Nine, I hope they've impacted our audience as much as they've impacted us.
Yeah, you got me there. That was great. He had a huge impact on me today, and let's go tee it up. We're going to play golf today.
All right, well, we're going to hit the front nine, and once again, we invite you to join us next time on the Back Nine.
Thank you so much for listening to the Back Nine podcast. Please like, follow, and share, and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or your preferred platform.
The Back Nine is produced by Janine Stella and recorded at Pixelworks Studios in Delray Beach, Florida.